Hi, my name is Kay. I'm a poet and a writer, and today I had something on my mind that I really wanted to talk about. Because, I'm a toddler. We are a Wiggles family, and I really love the Wiggles podcast, especially for parents of toddlers. I feel like it's so, I don't know, empowering, but also like you feel seen, you feel like you're talking with other parents. It's really, really great. But specifically, there was an episode where they had a viewer question and they had Anthony Wiggle on, the blue Wiggle, one of the original Wiggles, for those who are in the Wiggles know. And the viewer was a man who was going into early childhood education. And his question for Anthony was, how do you, do that as a man in this field? How do you not be, suspected by everyone of, child abuse, sexual exploitation of children, like all of these things. And Anthony, he was just like, you've got to be above suspicion, mate. He's Australian, so he's just like, mate, you got to be above suspicion. And he goes into this story talking about when he started in early childhood education, which this is why the Wiggles are so good. Two of them graduated from early childhood education before he and Murray, the Red Wiggle, graduated in their class with 4 men in their class. There had been 2 men previous who had graduated from the early childhood education program in Australia, period. And this would have been the 80s that they graduated. So this is all Tim talking about kind of the late 80s basically is the time frame. That's why the Wiggles early childhood education and music were the 2 passions, and that's why they're great. But so he's talking about when he graduated, as this very tiny representation of men, you had to be above suspicion. There couldn't be any doubts in anyone's mind, in any of the other teachers' minds, in any of the students' minds, in any of their parents' minds. He said he had to establish right away that he was not a hugging teacher. He told a story about how when one of those 4 men who he graduated with was student teaching, he was standing outside the bathrooms because he was on bathroom duty, and he was outside of the little girl's bathroom waiting for them to finish going potty. And the police got called on him because there's a strange man standing outside the little girl's restroom. And so Anthony's saying when he was a teacher, he had to make sure he always had a female aide in the classroom with him at all times, and bathroom duty was her responsibility. He also said if there was any need to change diapers, that was a female teacher's job. He did not touch those kinds of things. If hugs needed to be given, and he said there are these little kids, there are always times when they want a hug, or there needs to be a hug, like, they're crying or they got hurt. He said he would go and find a female teacher to do that because he had to be a non-hugging teacher. It was too important to not raise any kind of suspicion. That is the gold standard. You had to be so far above that. It's a great conversation that he had, a great story he tells. I'll link it down below. I think they have just that section, so you don't have to listen to the whole podcast, although I do recommend it. Recently, Alexa Dunn posted a short where she was talking about AI usage. And she basically said kind of the same thing. Like, I'll link that one also so you can actually listen to her words because she's so articulate. But basically the same kind of thing. Like, if you want to be taken seriously, and this is also kind of my interpretation, my perspective. If you want to be taken seriously as an artist or a writer in the world today, in this world where so many people are just cash grabbing, mass producing slop using AI, not even, putting any of their own effort into it, like literally clicking 2 buttons and then calling themselves artists or writers, even though they had no participation in other people's hard work that a computer just scrapped together. But if you want to be above being seen as that sort of a hack, as that sort of talentless person, which is where the reputation does take you if people find out that you've been using AI, the immediate assumption in people's minds, especially people who are your peers, who are actual artists and writers, they automatically assume you have no talent, that you're terrible, that you can't produce on your own, so you turned to this machine. In order to be above that suspicion, you have to just do away with it. You have to not use AI for any part. There can't be suspicion that, oh, you used AI for this part, so your whole thing is written by AI. Oh, you used it for this part, and so this thing is crap. There has to be no doubt in people's mind that your words are authentically yours, that there is no AI being used here because that's not something you do. And that is kind of where we are falling into as artists. You're going to see tons and tons and tons and tons of mass-produced crap that some people are going to make some money off of, and then eventually are going to fade out of the mainstream. as things always do that aren't, lasting, aren't well written, aren't good. People who are putting in the effort, doing the craft, actually creating results are going to kind of rise to the top as this sift out happens, because genuine authenticity, actual talent, any kind of concept of grammar, any kind of nuance is going to be more and more and more and more interesting as more and more slop saturates the market. And in order to be on that rise up, you do have to be someone that people trust, that they know for a fact you're safe with them. Your work is completely safe. Your work is without AI, that it is entirely from your own brain and from the brains of other humans who might be collaborating or helping or editing or all of those things. And sometimes you are going to run into issues. There are still people who you might need to collaborate with or work with or edit with or do your book cover. I saw another artist who found out that these beautiful book covers that she thought had been designed by an artist she paid had in fact been done with AI. And she didn't even call the person out until like they were creating art for someone else and it was very, very obvious, that kind of a thing. Like, this person was so nice about it, but that video just randomly came across my feed. If I can find that author, I'll link that one as well. You're going to run into those things, but the more that you establish your stance against it, and the more that you then, when you find out, reach out and are like, this is not okay, this is not how I operate, the more that the artists and the writers separate themselves from this cash grab network that's destroying our planet, the more you're going to have a career when all of this kind of sifts out. Hopefully that wasn't completely inarticulate and makes sense to people. I just feel very strongly now, especially after listening to Alexa and after thinking about it, and it just keeps coming back to that phrase that Anthony Wickel used, where he's just talking about how you have to be above suspicion. That is so important in certain fields, and in his case, so important in this early childhood education standpoint, that there was a need for male teachers. There was a need for that, and there was also a need for them to be safe, that there's such a danger of a male teacher in a classroom that it's not that it's exclusively men, and he talks about this so much better than I do, but it's that when it does happen, it is often men, and so that need. And here in the writer's sphere, there's a need to be above suspicion, to know that the work that you're consuming is coming from another human being who put their heart and soul into this manuscript. The need is coming greater and greater. And I think we are easily seeing the difference it makes when somebody does pour their heart and soul into something versus it goes into a machine. There is very much a soulless quality to AI works. And I don't think we should ever witch hunt writers. We shouldn't witch hunt artists unless it is something that is just painfully obvious and you want to make sure other people are not associating without their knowledge with AI works. But this isn't something to call out anyone in particular. I've got nobody in my mind right now that I'm thinking of when I'm talking about this. I'm reacting to Alexa Dunn's comments that I think are so true right now, that I think you should not be using AI for anything. I know I've done other videos in the past where I was like, you don't need it, like why are you using it? But I feel very strongly, as the world is changing and they are shoving AI down our throats in places it does not belong. They're shoving it from all angles to an irritating degree if you're someone who is even the slightest bit tech savvy. Like if you're even a little bit good at computers, it is so annoying the places that AI is popping up and getting shoved at you, especially search engines. Why can't we just search for things anymore? But it is just important to have that integrity. And I'd like to stand up myself as someone who has yet to ever use generative AI. I don't know. I wasn't present on the internet enough when the first wave came through, and then I was suspicious of it, and now I'm like completely repelled by it. I don't use anything generative AI. Any writing you see from me will always be my own words. If anything comes up looking like it's my own words and was stolen from my works, I would love if people would tell me and I could take legal action to protect my words and my intellectual property. All of my poetry is always written by me, All of my fan fiction is always written by me. All of my stories are always written by me. My essays, my blogs, nothing will ever be generative AI on my platform. I have always had that stance, but I'm taking that stance publicly right now. And should you find that anything seems amiss, feel free to reach out, because I have nothing to hide because I've never used it. Easy. And I feel like more writers are going to step up and take this stance. Either say, I have used it in the past and I am no longer using it, cut off from this date, or they're going to say, I've never used it, or they're going to say nothing. And I think the nothing will speak for itself over time. And I think that those writers who choose to say nothing probably have something to say. That is my stance now. And I wish you all the best. Good luck in your writing, reading, artistic endeavors of any kind. Just realize that you have a really great brain. And I am just now mentally strong enough, 2 years postpartum, to really get back into all of those things that kept me alive before, brought spark to my life. My son has been that for the time being right now, and I am starting to get back into reading again, like really just sitting down, enjoying a book. And I have been struggling with that for the past 2 years, and a lot of that is postpartum brain that I am recovering out of after 2 years. It's really quite a shift. And I'm getting back into reading, and because I'm getting back into reading, that part of my brain is reopening. I'm getting back into writing and back into making videos. So follow me more on this journey, and let me know your take on generative AI. If you want, you don't have to admit to anything that could be brought against you in a court of law. But again, like I said, I think that taking a stance against generative AI is important, and it is something that we need to establish and stand behind early on, even though the world is trying to work against us at the moment. All right, that's all from me today. Thank you so much for watching to the end, and good luck to you.